Good morning. Myself, Dr. Rajinder, Assistant Professor, Department of Laws, Punjab University. I will be speaking on the module of property rights and land reforms in advanced constitutional law. The objective of the module is to understand the right of property under Indian Constitution. The learning outcome of this module is that property is an indispensable aspect of human nature, but the concept of eminent domain has always created a priority of the state rights over the individual's right to property. The journey of a right of property started with a fundamental right, that is Article 31, but ultimately ended up resulting into a constitutional right, that is Article 300A. The principle of just compensation on compulsory acquisition has always been debated and resulted into the plethora of amendment acts. Finally, the Land Acquisition Act of 1894 is also replaced by the Right to Fair Compensation and Transparency in Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Act 2013. Property and law are born together and die together. Before laws were made, there was no property. Take away law, the property ceases. These words of Bentham states the interrelationship of property and law in the society. These words also highlight the journey of a property from pre-industrialization era, that is group holding, to individual ownership in post-industrialization era. Milton Friedman said, "Notion of a property as it has developed over centuries and it has embodied in our legal codes has become so much a part of us that we tend to take it for granted and fail to recognize the extent to which just what constitutes property and what rights the ownership of the property confers are complex social creation rather than self-evident propositions." Now, the concept of property is not limited to ownership and rights, but depicts the economic status of a man in society. The concept of property has now interwoven with the economic prosperity of an individual. Prince Machiavelli pointed out the extreme love toward the property in these words: "Man sooner forgets the death of the father than the loss of patrimony." This extreme love, passion for property resulted into the litigation in property not only with individual but with state also. This is the reason that there has been a continuous tussle on state acquisition. The state acquisitions have been derived from the doctrine of eminent domain. The term eminent domain was coined by Hugo Grotius, a Dutch jurist, philosopher of a natural law, to explain the control of the state over the natural property. Daniel P. Dalton explained eminent domain as the power of the sovereign to take private property for public use without the owner's consent. This power is inherent to the sovereign to shape the use as it deems fit. The doctrine is based upon the following two Latin maxims: salus populi est suprema lex, that is, welfare of the people, of the public, is the paramount law. Necessity public major est quam, that is, public necessity is greater than private necessity. The government has an inherent right to take and appropriate the private property belonging to an individual citizen for public use. This power is known as eminent domain. It is the offspring of political necessity. Thus, the property may be needed and acquired. Under this power, from government offices, libraries, slum clearance, public schools, parks, hospitals, highways, telephone lines, colleges, universities, dams, drainage, etc. In British era, the colonial authorities passed a specific legislation known as Regulation 1 of Bengal Code in 1824. This regulation had two purposes. Firstly, it enabled the acquisition of land at fair value for roads, canals and other public purposes. Secondly, it dealt with the procedure for the claims of zamindars and others regarding the peculiar circumstances of the lands required for the purposes of salt manufacture. With regard to the first object, the regulation established the concept of acquisition of private property by the government, which was expanded upon geographical and conceptually in the decades to come. In doing so, it also set the stage for further consolidation of a property in the hands of the colonial government and the expansion of the British Empire through this new legal mechanism. The second object was salt manufacturing, which proved significant. In short, this statute consolidated the decades of encroachment of colonial authorities into the salt industry. 7 years later, various laws on the subject of land acquisitions were consolidated as Act 4 applicable to the whole of the British India. The next legal step in the expansion of land acquisition was Land Acquisition Act of 1870, an act for the acquisition of land for public purposes and the companies. It made unambiguous link between the government acquisition and private entities meant to benefit from the expansion of the colonial directive. The next step was Section 299 of the Government of India Act, which secured the right of property and contained safeguards against expropriation without compensation and against acquisition for a non-public purpose. The debate in the Constituent Assembly when the draft Article 19, Subclause 1, Subclause F and Article 31 came up, our Constitution attached sufficient importance to the property to incorporate it in the chapter of fundamental rights. The debate in the Constituent Assembly about property rights was passionate, long-lasting and symbolic of many post-colonial debates regarding the strong protection of property rights. This also resulted into the development of Patel-Nehru divide. The issue debated included whether just should modify the term compensation, whether the legislature should determine the amount of compensation. An attempt was made in the assembly to introduce into the Constitution the due process clause of US Constitution for protecting the individual right of property. But this was finally withdrawn because of apparent dangers involved in this clause. The Constituent Assembly was divided into two groups. One group focusing on the natural right of an individual to own a property, while the other group in the Constituent Assembly argued that the payment of just compensation owing adherence to the socialistic approach on the right of property went to the extent of arguing that there should be no payment of compensation in case of compulsory acquisition for public good. The right to acquire, hold and dispose of property was included as a fundamental right. Depriving someone from the property was prohibited except by the authority of law. The question as to the quantum of compensation that has to be paid in case of acquisition or requisition of for public purposes created much difficulty. Article 31 of the Constitution in fact reflected this approach, which appeared to prefer protection of societal interest to individual interest. Thus, original Article 31 to the Constitution guaranteed deprivation of a property by law alone. It also guaranteed payment of compensation as fixed by legislature. Article 19, subclause 1, subclause F of the Constitution as originally enacted read as all citizens shall have the right to acquire, hold and dispose of property. Article 19, subclause 5 put reasonable restriction in the interest of general public or in the protection of the interest of any scheduled tribe. Article 31, subclause 1 provides that a person cannot be deprived of his property without authority of law. Article 31, subclause 2 lays down that the property could be taken possession of or acquired for public purposes only by law, that too on payment of compensation. Subclause 3 of Article 31 provides an additional check on abuse by state legislature. The Constitution made it obligatory that such laws made by the state must obtain the assent of the President to get the validity. The first shock to the right of a property was given in Kameshwar Singh versus State of Bihar in 1951, where Patna High Court struck down the Bihar Land Reforms Act 1950 on the ground of inadequacy of compensation. In the meantime, in 1952, State of Bengal versus Mrs. Bala Banerjee, the legal question which arose was whether the compensation provided under the West Bengal Land Development and Planning Act 1948 was in compliance with the proviso of Article 31, subclause 2. Section 8 of West Bengal Land Development and Planning Act 1948 made a declaration of government conclusive relating to public nature for the purposes of the acquisition and the limitation to the amount of the compensation as not to exceed the market value as it is prevailed on December 31, 1946 was declared ultra vires and unconstitutional and not in compliance with Article 31, subclause 2. Jawaharlal Nehru asked the then Law Minister Dr. B.R. Ambedkar to prepare the necessary amendments to the Constitution. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar suggested that the question of compensation should not be reviewed in any court if the presidential assent had been given for acquisition of property. President Rajendra Prasad raised several doubts, and Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, who was in Bombay, also wrote to Nehru asking for some further time till the doubts raised by the President were considered by the Law Ministry. It is believed that Nehru threatened to resign if Rajendra Prasad did not give presidential assent to the amendment. The President signed the bill but expressed his unhappiness at the urgency. V.K. Thiru Venkatacharya, in a letter to the Law Secretary K.V.K. Sundaram, suggested that a new schedule could be added to the Constitution. V.K. Thiru Venkatacharya's suggestions were later translated into Article 31A, 31B and 9th Schedule, which was added by Constitutional First Amendment Act 1951. Article 31A lays down that the law related to the acquisition of estates, nationalization of industries, extinguishment of mineral leases or their premature termination could not be challenged on the ground of that they are violative of Article 19, 14 and 31. Article 31B went even further. It stipulated that none of the acts and regulations specified in the 9th Schedule shall be deemed to be void or ever to have become void on the ground that they abridged any fundamental right. The 9th Schedule initially contained 13 land reforms enactment. Granville Austin labelled the 9th Schedule a genie that would have a profound impact on the constitutional governance of the country. Article 31A was subsequently amended with retrospective effect by Constitution 4th Amendment Act 1955 to extend the scope of state, while Bala Banerjee case focused on the interpretation of the word compensation in Article 31 subclause 2, and Subodh Gopal case inquired the question whether the deprivation of right to evict a tenant would fall within the purview of Article 31 subclause 2, and Dwarkadas Srinivas in turn interpreted the words take possession of in Article 31 subclause 2 to include even temporary taking over. The observation made by the court in these cases, which tended to run counter to the legislative policy, in fact led to 4th Amendment of the Constitution. The new subclause 2A was inserted by the Constitution 4th Amendment Act 1955, which clarified the meaning of compulsory acquisition and requisition, which means that the law provided for the transfer of ownership or right to possession would amount to compulsory acquisition and requisition. Thus, the damage which has been caused by Dwarkadas was rectified by this amendment. The next step was 17th Amendment Act 1964, by which the state extended the scope of Article 31A and 9th Schedule to protect certain agrarian reforms enacted by Kerala and Madras states. It also added consequentially the second proviso to clause 1 to protect a person of being deprived of land less than the relevant land ceiling held by him for personal cultivation except on payment of full market value, thereby by way of a compensation. It also added 44 more acts to the 9th Schedule. In Varjalu versus Special Deputy Collector, the Apex Court, while discussing the question of land acquisition, Madras Amendment Act 1961 within the purview of Article 31, the court observed that the object of Article 31A is to facilitate agrarian reforms. Therefore, the protection is not applicable to a law which seeks to modify the right of the owner without reference to agrarian reform. The above referred act was passed to create modern suburbs, housing schemes and to clear slums. Thus, it was held that Land Acquisition Madras Amendment Act 1961 does not fall within the purview of Article 31A. But even after Constitution 4th Amendment of 1955, the apex court in the famous R.C. Cooper case known as bank nationalization case held that the compensation in Article 31 subclause 2 implied full monetary equivalent to the property taken from the owner, that is the market value at the date of the acquisition. As a result of the same, the Constitutional 25th Amendment Act 1971, which replaced the word amount for the word compensation appearing in the repealed Article 31 subclause 2. But even after this major amendment, the apex court in the landmark judgment in Keshwanand Bharti case held that the amount which is fixed by the legislature could not be arbitrary or illusory, but must be determined by the principle which is relevant to the acquisition of property. Article 31C was added by 25th Amendment Act 1971, which turned out to be the most controversial provision. In the entire history of liberty, it was for the first time so many people were deprived of so many fundamental rights in one sweep as by the insertion of Article 31 sub C. N.A. Palkiwala, famous lawyer, rightly remarked with grief in this context that it is a measure of a immaturity as a democracy and utter apathy of our people that the betrayal of our basic freedom excited hardly any public debate. The 25th Amendment Act inserted a new article 31C which contained two provisions. Firstly, no law which seeks to implement the socialistic directive principle of state specified under Article 39 subclause B and C shall be void on the ground of contravention of fundamental rights conferred by Article 14, 19 or Article 31. Secondly, no law containing a declaration for giving effect to such policy shall be questioned in any court on the ground that it does not give effect to such a policy. In Keshwanand Bharti case versus State of Kerala, the Supreme Court declared the above second proviso of Article 31C as unconstitutional and invalid on the ground that the judicial review is the basic feature of the Constitution, hence cannot be taken away. However, above the first provision of Article 31C was held to be constitutional and valid. After the declaration of Article 31C subclause 2 as unconstitutional, the 42nd Amendment stretched the extent of the earlier part of Article 31C. In the meantime, Article 31C was enacted to give effect only to directive principles under Article 39. The 42nd Amendment Act 1976 sheltered legislations that profess to any of the directive principles and make them resistant from the constitutional validity of Article 14, 19 and 31. The predominance of directive principles over the fundamental right. This stipulation was struck down in Minerva Mills case. The Constitutional 44th Amendment Act 1978 was another severe blow to fundamental right of property, resulting into the elimination the right of a property from Part 3 by wiping out Articles 19 subclause 1, subclause F and 31, resulting into the insertion of Article 300A, that is right to property. The 44th Amendment ended a journey of a right of property as a fundamental right and continued the same as a constitutional right. This amendment has two instant repercussions. Firstly, the right of property was no longer a fundamental right, but a constitutional right. Secondly, due to the removal of Article 31, the government now no more owes an obligation to pay compensation to the persons whose land has been acquired as per a law passed by the Parliament. While interpreting the phrase law used in Article 300 in Bishambar Dayal Chandra Mohan versus State of UP, the Apex Court held that Article 300A provides that no person shall be deprived of his property save by authority of law. The state government cannot, while taking recourse to the executive power of the state under Article 162, deprive a person of his property. The word law in this context of Article 300A must mean an act of Parliament or of a state legislature, a rule or a statutory order having the force of a law that is positive or a state made law. In the case of Basanti Bai versus State of Maharashtra, a division bench of Bombay High Court held that in spite the deletion of Article 31 subclause 2, there is still an obligation on the state to pay adequate amount to the expropriated owner. Further, the law providing for deprivation of a property must be fair, just and reasonable. On the ground of Menka Gandhi's case, the Bombay High Court decision was challenged in State of Maharashtra versus Basanti Bai in Apex Court, where it was further contended that the compensation payable was illusory in the quantum and the procedure prescribed for the acquisition was not fair and reasonable. Though the dictum laid down in the Menka Gandhi case designed so, but the Supreme Court has overruled the judgment propounded by the Bombay High Court. Again in Chairman IVK Pradhikaran versus Puri Cork and Chemical Limited, referring to Article 17 of the Declaration of Human Rights, observed that the right to property being inviolable, sacred, and no one might be deprived thereof unless the public necessity legally asserted obviously required it, and just and prior indemnity has been paid. The Apex Court, while discussing the word property in the state of Jharkhand and others versus Jatinder Kumar, Srivastav and other, held that gratuity and pension are not bounties, and an employee earns these benefits by dint of his long, continuous, faithful, unblemished services. The same being hard earned benefit in the nature of property cannot be taken away without due process of law as provided under Article 300A of the Constitution of India. In 2011, in another case, Rajiv Sareen and another versus State of Jharkhand and others, before the apex court, the question was whether the High Court was justified in holding that the appellants were not entitled to any compensation even when their forest land is acquired by the government merely because the appellant had not derived any income from the said forest, is one of the several important questions of law which was arisen in consideration in the present appeal. The apex court held that the inherent powers of public purpose and eminent domain are embodied in Article 300A, Entry 42, List 3, which necessarily provides that the acquisition and reacquisition of property will be for the public use and for compensation. Whenever a person is deprived of his property with the limitation as implied in Article 300A as well as Entry 42, List 3 will come into the picture, the court can always examine the legality of the legislation in question, and such questions is open to judicial review. Article 31B, read with 9th schedule of the Constitution, does not protect laws if they are violative of Part 3 of the Constitution. In I.R. Kohal versus State of Tamil Nadu, the court held that the laws added in the 9th schedule of the Constitution would be open to judicial review on the ground of basic structure doctrine. Under 300A of the Constitution, the state can proceed to acquire the land for specified use, but by enacting a law through the state legislature. A distinction has been drawn between the concept of no compensation and the concept of nil compensation as mandated by Article 300A. A person can be deprived of his property, but in just, fair, reasonable manner. In an appropriate cases, the court may find that state has undertaken to take over the liability and had also assured to compensate in just, fair manner. But the situation would be totally different if it is a case of no compensation at all. Basically, a law seeking to acquire private property for public purpose cannot say no compensation to be paid. While concluding my module, I would like to say that fundamental rights have been the most controversial aspect under the Constitution, and it has also caused continuous tussle between legislature and judiciary, resulting into the several amendments. Ultimately, it resulted into the dilution of fundamental right of property into the constitutional right. In this process to the same, Article 31A, B and C has been added, which confers immunity to the legislations affecting fundamental right. The right relating to the property are not in consonance with the rights which has been laid down in other countries. Article 13 of 1977 Constitution of United Soviet Socialist Republics, which says that the personal property of the citizens and the right to inherit its property are protected by the states, and this includes articles of everyday use, personal consumption, convenience, implements and other objects of a small holding, a house and earned savings. The same principle has been taken up by the Constitution of China, which protects the right of a citizen to own private property, which include lawful earned income, saving, houses and other lawful property. In the meantime, the Land Acquisition Act 1894 allows the Government of India to acquire a land in the country. It took nearly 120 years to replace this draconian law of land acquisition with the right to fair compensation, transparency in Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Act 2013, which came into force from January 1, 2014. This landmark legislation provides human approach, participative, informed and transparent process for land acquisition for industrialization, development of essential infrastructure facilities and urbanization. The novel Land Acquisition Act is an endeavor to restructure the acquisition process, which has till date been very messy. The significant characteristic of the Act is that the developers will need a consent of 80% of the people whose land has been acquired in case of a private projects and 70% of a people in case of public-private projects. The Supreme Court, while delivering the judgment on Noida arbitrary acquisition in 2011, said that the right to property is a constitutional right and the government cannot deprive a person of his land in an arbitrary manner. A bench consisting of Justice G. S. Singhvi and A. K. Ganguly said in the judgment that the courts should view with a suspicion the action of the government in acquiring land for private parties in the name of urgency, keeping in view the constitutional goal of social and economic justice, and the fact that even though the right of property is no longer a fundamental right, the same constitutes to be an important constitutional right in terms of Article 300A. No person can be deprived of his property except by authority of law. Thank you.